Welcome to the Disrupting Obesity podcast. I'm Charlotte Skanes, and I'll be sharing ways to regain control over your body and lose an extreme amount of weight naturally. Being fat is about so much more than just the food. It's about your relationship with food. That means that dealing with your weight is about more than just the food, too. You have to change that relationship. You have to start disrupting obesity. Welcome to our first spring cleaning Ask Whatever. The backlog is very real, and I want to get to some of the questions that you guys have sent in. So we're just going to cut right to it. I'm going to plow through as many of these as I can get to today, and then if we have to, we're going to do another one because, we've got to deal with this backlog. So first up today is a series of questions from Flamingo Forum. The deal is that when somebody signs up, their questions go to the top of the list, and I'm sorry, but that's just the way it works. So we're going to go through some of those first, and then we'll get to some of the other questions that have been sent in. Why didn't I realize that I could lose weight just by making some swaps? I think people don't realize that because the diet industry deliberately overcomplicates things to make you buy stuff. I really think that's it. I also think that we've all been told and programmed for so long that losing weight is extremely hard, which it is. But that doesn't mean that it has to be complicated. And I think the whole process is deliberately overcomplicated in a lot of ways to make you fail. Because the more often you do this, the more stuff they're going to sell you, right? And ultimately, that's the diet industry's goal. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and all it cares about is its bottom line. Why has it taken until my 50s for the penny to drop? That's a really individual question, and I probably can't answer that for you. But from my experience, what I've found, especially with women, we are so busy trying to do all of the things all at the same time. We're carrying the emotional load. And sometimes it isn't until our 50s that we have the time to catch our breath and start doing things for ourselves. Sometimes we just don't prioritize ourselves, I think, until later in life. And we can wake up one morning and just kind of go, oh my God, what happened? Where am I? Or the other side of that is some of us have been just trying to get our weight under control, sometimes for just decades, right? And it isn't until our 50s that we slow down maybe a little bit and start to look for other ways to do it. Why do we live in a society where they shove donuts in our faces in supermarket entrances but ostracize overweight people? I think that brings us back to the first question on this list today, right? It's the diet industry. They don't stand to make any money off of a whole bunch of thin people. So the reality is the bigger they can get us, the more likely they are to sell us more products to deal with our weight. It's kind of just one of the great contradictions of the society we live in, right? We openly discriminate against fat people. We treat them like dirt. And yet everywhere we turn, there's more and more food. It's definitely a conflicting message and something that we all kind of have to work together to fight against. But there's no easy answer there either. Well, I guess the easy answer there is money. The bigger we are, the more food we eat, the more food they sell, the more money they make. The bigger we get, the more food they sell, the more money they make. It all comes down to money. Why can't I just be more consistent in my food choices? That's another great question, and it's one that I think everybody would like to find the answer to, but it's a super individual thing too. It's hard to be inconsistent in our food choices because it's not always what we want. It can be boring. It isn't always fun all the time. Plus, there's the availability of food thing that we were just talking about. It's hard to sit down to a plate of super healthy boiled chicken breasts and broccoli and beets when you're walking through the grocery store and there's all this other amazing food tempting you all the time. Every time you get in your car, there's all this amazing food everywhere tempting you all the time. That, I think, can make it a lot harder to stay consistent in your food choices just because of the availability of all of the food. Do you? Should you? Does anybody count calories on their birthday? I think that's entirely up to you. I honestly don't remember when I was losing my weight, how at least the first time, how I handled that. The second time around, I don't think I did. I also tried to keep things in check as best I could. I wouldn't go on, like a 7,000 calorie food bender that was going to blow up my whole week or blow up that month for me. I would try to stay conscientious about things on my birthday, but I don't know that I was necessarily tracking every single little thing. But this is a mindset thing too, right? Because if while you're losing weight, you're making these kinds of negotiations with yourself about taking these days off and having these cheat days. What is it going to look like for you once you do get to your goal and you don't have the pressure of trying to lose weight anymore? My whole thing is change your overall relationship with food. It isn't just about doing whatever it takes to get the weight off. If that was the case, then everybody should just do the old school horribleness of everybody gets 1,200 calories and that's it. Even if you're eating 4,000 calories a day right now and that's what your body needs, no, you get 1,200. That type of extreme restriction doesn't work, right? It'll lead to weight loss if you can stick with it, which most people can't, but it's not going to help you with your relationship with food. Things like how you choose to handle food on event days, like your birthday, those are deeper relationship with food things. And you need to watch the way you're talking to yourself on those days, because if you're giving yourself big permission slips while you're losing weight to just eat whatever you want, throw caution to the wind, take down all the calories that you want to, and not even worry about it because it's a special day, it makes me wonder what you're going to do once you do hit your goal. And like I said, like, you don't have that pressure pushing down on you anymore of getting the weight off. It isn't about getting to your goal so that you can go back to eating the way that you used to. Eating the way that you used to is just going to lead to regain. It's just going to put you back to where you were before. So I think ideally on days like your maintenance days, if you're trying to work on the bigger picture, you're trying to work on the relationship with food, something I would probably advise you to do is just go back to maintenance. Give yourself those 500 calories back for the day and just eat at maintenance that day. No harm, no foul. You'd be good. And you're doing something about that broader relationship with food question, which is something you can pat yourself on the back for, because you know that you're doing what you have to do to get the weight off and keep it off. Did you stay in the same deficit or did you change it up as you lost weight? So I changed it up as I lost weight because you need to, because your TDEE is going to shift as you lose weight. The smaller your body gets, the fewer calories it needs just to maintain your weight and just to function the way that it needs to function, right? That's your total daily energy expenditure, the number of calories your body burns in a day. So as you're dropping weight, that TDEE is also going to be shifting down, and mine was. If you're using a calorie tracking app and you're entering your weight weekly, it's going to automatically be recalculating that for you, which I think is the most sustainable way to do it, because it's just going to drop a few calories at a time. So you're not going to notice those shifts as significantly as if it was, you just set a random date on the calendar, and on this day, I'm going to drop another 200 calories. It's a lot easier just to drop it incrementally as you go and as you're losing your weight. So while my calories were changing, my deficit was the same. I stuck to that 500 calorie deficit the whole way through, but that didn't mean that I got to eat the same number of calories the whole time. It was always moving down, but I did hold my deficit at 500 calories. A pound of fat is 3,500 calories. Divide that by 7, you get a 500 calorie a day deficit. That's definitely where I'm the most comfortable, and I feel like that's where we should be. Overcoming extreme feelings in the evenings when binge urges are strong. Already eaten full meals for the day. I shouldn't be hungry, but it's like these urges to grab food are so strong in my head. Yeah, the food noise is really hard to deal with. There are a few different ways that you can come at this. If, like me, you're just a night eater, you might want to move some calories around. You might want to shift your window around. That's what I did, right? I stopped eating, first thing in the morning when I got up, because that just meant I was going to be continuously eating right up until the time I go to bed. I moved my eating window so that I could eat the bulk of my calories in the evening, which was when I felt the most satisfied emotionally in particular. And I felt satisfied physically too, but it was the emotional side of the eating that I was trying to quell. And I did that by letting myself eat at night. But that compulsion to just continuously eat when you're home for the evening can be really hard to deal with. I would try and figure out what's going on behind the scenes. Ask yourself, why are you doing this? Try to figure out what's driving it. So for some of us, it's boredom. We're eating at night because we're bored and we don't know what else to do. We're eating at night because it's a habit, because that's something we've always done. A lot of us do it for CRC reasons, comfort, reward, and cope, whether we're comforting ourselves or coping with something that happened during the day, or we're rewarding ourselves for something that happened during the day. And sometimes we're just rewarding ourselves for making it through the day. all right, I got all my work stuff done. The kids are in bed. Everything's finished. This is me time, and me time equals food. That can be the case for a lot of people. If you know that you're going to want to binge at night, plan ahead for it. Give yourself some leeway. Have pre-portioned snacks that you normally like to eat at night ready to go so that you can log them, you can track them, you can be accountable for what you're doing. Try to eat lower calorie, bulkier foods during the day so that you have more room in your calories at night to accommodate those cravings. And I think it's fine to say that you shouldn't be hungry. Please don't beat yourself up for that, though. Emotional hunger is very real, too. Just because it's an emotional need, that doesn't mean that it isn't still valid. Something else you can try to do is distract yourself from the eating. Maybe take up a hobby. Start something that you have to do with your hands or that requires a lot of mental attention so that you're not focusing on the food all of the time. How long did it take you to lose so much weight? It took me just under 2.5 years to lose 201 pounds. I did it at a rate of about 1.55 pounds a week. But I don't count all the time, the years that I spent prior to getting it right. I don't count all the time I spent yo-yoing, all the time I spent, starting on Monday, losing 2 pounds, giving up by Wednesday. All of that went on for years, and I didn't lose any weight, really. I mean, like I said, I lost a few pounds here, a few pounds there, but it always came back, and it always came back with friends, usually lots of friends. It would just turn into like a great big bush party is what would end up happening. Did you have your hormones checked when you started losing weight? No, I did not. My biggest problem is putting together meals for one day that will satisfy me for the whole day. Meal planning can be tough. I find when people have structure, though, it's a lot easier to stick with it. And sometimes if you have stuff done in advance, you're just making it easier on yourself to grab the thing that you planned that you want to grab instead of getting home and going, okay, I know I said I was going to have, I don't know, stuffed green peppers, but that's a lot of work right now. So instead, I'm just going to, throw in a pizza. I'm just going to do some fries, whatever. Stop at the fast food on the way home. If you know that the food's already there waiting for you, it's going to be that much easier. I tend to I have a really loose meal plan that I follow. Some of you guys have heard about this before. I designate one night a week for pasta, one night a week for rice, one night a week for breakfast. Mostly because there's so much leeway in those three things. Breakfast can be basically anything. Pasta can be basically anything. Rice can be basically anything. But I have an idea heading into my week of where I'm going to be. What people find satisfying varies from person to person. I know that there's a tendency to just tell people, if you eat this, you'll feel full and you'll feel great. The thing is, even if foods are very physically satisfying, if it isn't something that we find emotionally and mentally satisfying too, we can end up just reaching for something else. That's not always helpful because now we're just doubling down on calories, right? We forced ourselves to eat something we didn't want because it's healthy. And then we just end up reaching for the stuff that we actually want later on. So now we've got all the calories from the healthy food and we're reaching for the stuff that we actually wanted. We're just doubling down. This is not ideal. So what you need to do is find foods that you find satisfying on both levels and then work towards finding a way to balance those out. I would try to find high volume, low calorie foods that I do enjoy, that I find satisfying mentally as much as physically. Find a way to enjoy them, whether that's a great big salad that you sprinkle with cheese or a particular type of stir fry that you really enjoy. There are lots of different, even something as simple as popcorn can be a low calorie, high volume solution. So it's finding those things to insert into your day so that you have the calories you need to feel satisfied with the other food that you're going to eat. So I know I did a series of episodes recently where I cleared out the Gladys backlog, and I'm sure this isn't going to surprise any of you. She's back. She's all over my inbox. It just never stops. So this week in our special spring cleaning Ask Whatever, we do get to hear from Gladys. And here's what she had to say. Okay, so she opens with just curious, which is part of how I know that she doesn't actually listen to the podcast. Do you exercise now since you've lost the weight? I understand the struggles when you started your journey, but there are just so many benefits to exercise other than weight loss that a lot of people don't talk about. Well, Gladys, I'm pretty sure they do talk about it. I'm pretty sure everybody's social media feeds are chock-a-block full with people talking about the benefits of exercise. Now, I'm one of the people who doesn't talk about the benefits of exercise for weight loss, but thank you so much for throwing me into that group. And I agree with you. I completely agree. There are so many benefits to exercise, so many benefits to movement. My whole thing is I meet people where they are. And not all of us, particularly those of us who weigh over 300 pounds, feel like exercising to lose our weight. So, no, I don't promote exercise. I'm not against it. I think it's terrific. I have talked pretty extensively about the benefits of movement, how things like muscle mass and balance, these are all very important things. And especially as we're getting older, we want to make sure that we have good balance. Nobody wants to fall and break a hip. Nobody wants to blow out their knees. So yes, exercise is terrific. But since I'm the person who meets people where they are, and I'm not an exercise expert, I'm not the person out there promoting that stuff. Also, the exercise that I do, because I realize that you want me to talk about my journey with exercise now that I've lost the weight. For me, it's a little bit different. I'm still, and I know it's crazy, it's been a long time, but I am still in the physio stage of exercise. Exercise is very difficult for me. I have secondary diabetes, which complicates exercise for me in ways that I'm not going to go into right now. But because of the muscle atrophy from the first time I was sick, and then I had the hospitalization in 2023 and the hospitalization in 2022, which set me back a fair bit more with the atrophy, I'm still very much in a building phase. I try to get in as much exercise as I can because I understand the benefits of that, especially as someone who's had to relearn how to walk due to muscle atrophy. I totally get it. So that's kind of my relationship with exercise right now. I'm still trying very hard. It's something I do try to incorporate, but I have a very specific set of physical challenges that make it different for me and in some ways make it more difficult for me. So that's where I'm at. But as you guys all already know, there are people out there talking about the benefits of exercise. And if that's something you want more information on, you can always go out and Google it. Look for it on YouTube. It's all there. What do you mean when you say you are staying in a deficit? Eating less calories than you need? Exactly. You've totally got it. And this was not a Gladys question. This was a regular question, and it's a very good one and one that we need to talk about because we see that term thrown around so much, calorie deficit, but not everybody talks about what it means. You've completely nailed it. A calorie deficit is simply eating fewer calories a day than your body needs. We call the number of calories your body needs your TDEE, your total daily energy expenditure. BMR gets thrown around a lot too. That's your basal metabolic rate. It's part of your TDEE. So once you've figured out your maintenance TDEE, which is the number of calories your body needs every day, you want to eat fewer than that. We typically say 500 calories, just like I said, the whole 3,500 calories for a pound of fat thing. So you want to be eating in a deficit. So you figure out your TDEE, we drop from that number, and that gap is the deficit. How many meals do you eat per day? 3 meals or 1 meal? It varies and it depends on how you look at it. I'm assuming you've got it in the present tense, so I feel like you mean now, but I'll give you both. So when I was losing my weight, I was eating what I think most people would call 3 meals a day. It's just my breakfast was after 6 o'clock at night. So I'd have a big meal when I broke my fast. Then I would, a few hours later, have another meal, probably something that looked like most people's lunches. And then a few hours that I would be eating again. So yeah, it was close to 3 meals. Sometimes I even have little snacks in between because I'd be eating from, 6 p.m. till 2 o'clock in the morning, an 8-hour window, which is pretty normal. So instead of eating my breakfast first thing in the morning and then noon and 5 or something, I just repeated that pattern, but I did it at night. Now that I'm maintaining my weight and with my diabetes and my other health challenges, things look a little bit differently. I don't eat just one large meal. I do have a large meal, but I have at least one other meal with that every day. So I would say I probably eat 2 meals a day now, two, sizable meals, and then 1 or 2 snacks along the way. I lost 120 pounds, but gained 75 back, and I'm so frustrated. I can't seem to get in the right frame of mind no matter how hard I push myself. I start off okay, but then I lose steam, especially when there's physical pain involved. I'm sorry. I know firsthand how frustrating that is. 85% of everybody who's lost their weight knows exactly how frustrating that is, and I'm really sorry that you're going through it. Holding yourself in the right headspace is definitely one of the biggest challenges that there are around this, especially when you've tried before and you've gained the weight back. This failure narrative can start to set in, and this little doubting voice that goes, well, what's the point? You lost it once, you gained it back. Why would you even bother to lose it again? I understand that. Let's flip it on its head though, and maybe start telling yourself, I've lost the weight before, so I know I can do it again, period. Like, just stop it there. I've lost the weight before. That means this is something that I can do. I know what I'm doing. I just have to do it again. And believe me, I very, very deeply understand how frustrating it is to have to do it again. But it is the only way. And I get what you mean about the physical pain and starting off strong and then going, I understand. It's really hard. But you also know from your experience before that the only way you're going to get to that goal is to keep going. So maybe we'll let go of the starting and stopping narrative and just view it as more of a continuous line. You absolutely can do this. You've done it before. You can definitely, definitely do it again. It's so hard to estimate calories when you're out, especially when it isn't a chain. How do you do that part? I do my best. I just do the best I can with the information that I have and the information that I can find. I'll use my app. I will use Google. I will plug in just the name of the food, beef stroganoff. I'll plug in beef stroganoff, or I'll qualify it and I'll say restaurant beef stroganoff. I'll see what the app pulls up and I'll take an average, right? I'll leave the outliers. So let's say, one is 2,200 calories and one is 500 calories. I'll drop those, go with the ones in the middle, and just take an average. All you can do is your best. You're better off to guess and maybe try and guess it, err more on the side of higher than on lower, because we all want to think that we ate the 120 calorie version of something when every other version is 500. We all want to believe that, we're the unicorn who found the 120. Probably not. Err on the side of the higher average and just do your best. It's not going to be perfect 100% of the time. That's not going to happen. We got to let that perfectionism bit go. You're better off guesstimating than just not tracking it and, saying screw it for the rest of the day. How do you actually do it and follow through? I'm so scared of failing that I just keep self-sabotaging. Yeah, that sounds like a real pattern. The good news here is you've identified the pattern and you understand that your fear of failure is holding you back. Perfect. Awareness is key. We're acknowledging it. You've reached out to a lady with a podcast. That's some pretty good acknowledgement, right? Now, the accountability part, because we're going to 3A way this just like I do with most things. It's okay to be scared so long as you keep going. It's okay to be scared so long as you keep trying. I think it's terrific that you've got self-sabotage on your radar right now. That's something that we talk about a fair bit around here, because we sabotage the hell out of ourselves. Set small, manageable goals. Focus on small, incremental changes. Take it a day at a time instead of just focusing on the big goal. You want to keep your eye on the prize. You know what the end goal that you want is, but focus on what you need to do in that moment to get there. Instead of just sitting there telling yourself over and over again, oh my God, I got to lose 30 pounds. I got to lose 80 pounds, 120, whatever that number is. No, instead of focusing on that massive goal, we're going to focus on the little one in front of us. We're going to focus on getting through the next meal. We're going to focus on getting through today. Little steps, because the only way out is through. The only choice that you have to avoid that failure is to keep going. And so long as you're trying, you're not failing. So long as you're having these conversations with yourself and you're confronting yourself about this stuff, you're not failing. This next one's different, but it's on the same page as the last one. Did you trip up and binge? How did you overcome the severe shame and defeat? Yes, I did. I absolutely did. I had moments where I fell flat on my face. I'm like everybody else. I didn't lose my weight in a straight line. There were ups, there were downs. Yes, my average is 1.55 pounds a week, but that doesn't mean I lost 1.55 pounds a week. That's just the average. I wish I'd lost my weight in a straight line. I wish that every single week I'd had a loss, that there weren't weeks where I gained or weeks where I lost nothing. But there were both of those weeks. There were a lot of both of those weeks. And there will be for you too. There are for everybody. Nobody loses weight in a straight line. I overcame the shame and defeat by telling myself that this is something everybody goes through, that falling on my face doesn't make me a failure. It just means I made a mistake. It means I had a bad day. It's going to take a while to stop having bad days. I was used to binging to cope with just about everything life threw at me. So it didn't seem reasonable to me to expect that I could just completely stop those behaviors and never have a moment where I slipped up again, especially when life threw some real curveballs my way, which it absolutely did. So yeah, there would be shame and there would be a feeling of not so much defeat for me, but guilt. I call it the guilt and shame spiral, right? I'd make a mistake. I'd, eat poorly, and that would make me feel bad about myself, which would make me eat more, which would make me feel worse, which would make me eat more. And it's this snake eating its own tail that goes around and around. So I dealt with that a lot, and it was a spiral that I had to learn how to interrupt, because at some point it becomes a form of self-sabotage. Because I know if I eat poorly, it's like I'm giving myself a license, giving myself a permission slip to do bad eating, because that's my pattern. That's what I do. I feel bad about myself, so I go and eat, which makes me feel worse about myself, so I go and eat. I had to find a way to interrupt that pattern, to stop that. And part of the way that I did that was to stop beating myself up for falling into that cycle and try to lift myself up out of it instead. I've said a few times now, feeling bad about myself never once stopped me from eating, but feeling good about myself stopped me from eating more times than I can count. So instead of telling myself I'm the person who makes bad choices, I'm the person who just sits here and binges, I'm the girl who's going to eat that whole box of donuts, I would focus on some of the better choices that I've made, because there were better choices that I made. And it might be something really simple. Like this morning when I went to McDonald's, I didn't get 2 extra value meals like I usually would have before I started losing my weight. I only got 1. I didn't get the extra hash brown today. Those little wins became kind of like buoys or life rings that I could float along to in the sea of trying to keep myself going. I would find things to build myself up about, even if it was only something very small. But it was a change that I'd made for the better. Not getting the second hash brown, sure, it's not a huge deal. I don't even know how many calories one of those things are, 180, 200 calories. Not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. But the fact that I stuck to that choice meant that I was still committed to my weight loss. It meant that I was still committed to getting into this healthier version of myself, even if it was only a small thing. So I would cling to those little things as ways to stop the shame, to stop the guilt, and to stop the sense of defeat, right? Because so long as I'm making those little changes and sticking with them, even if I have moments where I blow it in a big way, I'm still committed because I'm making the small changes. And it's those small changes that are going to pave the way to success. And I knew that, so I hung on to that. We're constantly being told that it has to be big sweeping changes. You have to give up all carbs. You have to only eat steak and butter. You have to eat like a caveman. We're told it has to be this massive all or nothing thing, and it doesn't. It can and is little tiny changes that add up to your success. I've tried and failed so many times that I find it harder and harder to start every time. How do I get out of my head and get started? Maybe a way that you could look at this was to stop looking at it as a series of starting and stopping and just look at it as one continuous line, right? This is just the next step in your starting. We all have the whole I'm going to start on Monday mentality that I don't think is overly helpful. My favorite expression on this is just pick the next day that ends in Y and go with that one. That's the right day. I don't think you want to set this up mentally as like a line in the sand in your life where I ate this way and I was this person and then I started dieting and I became this person. That's not really what we're after. We want to transition things a little bit more smoothly between those two states of being, because you're the same person on both sides of that line, right? And it's society, it's our culture that have put this pressure on that you're suddenly a good person when you're on this side of the dieting line, but the one of you over here that just keeps getting started and never getting anywhere, she's somehow not a good person. And that's complete and utter bullshit. You're the same person on both sides of the line. So let's worry less about starting and let's focus more on just doing what you need to do to get to the next point. And maybe that's as simple as just downloading a new app on your phone, tracking a few things, and taking it from there. It doesn't have to be this big sweeping life overhaul that everybody keeps making it out to be. Take the pressure of the massive sweeping change off your plate and out of your mind, and try instead to just focus on those little tiny changes. And honestly, it would kind of be stupid of me not to tell you at this point that I do have a guide to getting started for the last time. It is 100% free. It'll always be free, and anybody can have a copy. We'll put the link in the notes. You can go grab one if you're looking for some guidance on how to implement some of those little changes. This is an 11-step guide with things that you can implement right now. I also did a webinar to support that has some free worksheets that go along with it. We'll put the link for that in the notes too. So something like that might be helpful. So yeah, go grab the guide. That will help you get out of your head and just start implementing those even some of those 11 things. And if you don't feel like getting the guide, that's fine. My advice would still be just to take it slow, stop beating yourself up, and just make those small incremental changes to help yourself. When you were going through your weight loss, did you start and stop several times before it all came together for you and it just got easier? Yes, absolutely. I spent years trying and failing and trying and trying. And like I said, I'd lose some weight and then it would all come back with friends. Many friends. I have memories of being a preteen, and I think I weighed probably about 155 pounds as a preteen. And I was trying to lose weight then. I can remember trying to lose weight in middle school, having absolutely no idea how to do it. I have a very distinct memory of standing in front of my parents' bathroom closet, looking at all the medication in there and trying to figure out if I took any of that, would it help me lose weight? And it was things like there were antacid tablets and, maybe some cough syrup. There were no real medications in the house at all. And there was absolutely nothing that would help me to lose weight. I think I took some antacids but again, I was just a little kid. I had no idea. So that type of behavior kicked off wanting to lose weight for me. I did Slim Fast as a teenager and in high school. I tried all of that stuff. Nothing worked. I tried a whole bunch of little meals, one great big meal, you name it, anything I could afford and I could get my head around, I could figure out how to do it. I tried it. Eating all the same thing, eating all different things, tried it. None of it worked for me. The pounds all just came back and they always brought friends. In a lot of ways, my success with weight loss started to come after I gave up. I felt like I just said, fuck it. I don't know what to do anymore. I've tried it your way. Everybody thinks I'm nuts. That's okay. I like to eat at night. I'm going to eat at night. And I don't want to eat all of this crazy diet food. This was the low fat food thing was happening at this time. I didn't want to eat any of that. I didn't like any of the diet food out there. So I gave up. I really just gave up and I started eating at night because that was when I wanted to eat. And I went, well, okay, if all these people are saying you shouldn't eat at night, well, then I'm just going to flip it. I won't eat during the day, but I will eat at night and we're going to see what happens. Oh, and I'm going to eat whatever I want because I can't keep doing this. I can't have another bowl of cabbage soup. I don't want to eat another grapefruit. I don't want any more of this. So I felt like I was giving up and I was just checking myself out of the diet industry. I had no idea that what I was doing was called intermittent fasting. I didn't fully understand about calories and how they worked at that point, but I made sure I learned. I spent the entire time I was losing weight the first time learning about weight loss, watching documentaries, reading books, getting a hold of anything I could to try and understand what was going on. But at that time, telling people I was only eating at night and I was eating whatever I wanted, even though I was shrinking right in front of their eyes, it made people nuts. They thought I was crazy. They would tell me I was a liar. They would tell me I was a lunatic. But it did work. And that was when things came together for me. And that was when I started to understand concepts like calories can't tell time. All these people who've been telling me if I eat after 7 p.m., my body will convert it to fat and just instantly store it are completely full of shit. Because I was eating exclusively after 6 p.m. and I was losing weight. I was losing weight at a rate of about 1.55 pounds a week. So something was working. But yeah, it all came together for me basically when I threw in the towel and felt like I was giving up, not giving up on myself. I was giving up on the messaging, and I was giving up on the diet industry completely. I just wanted to remove myself totally from that whole narrative, which is what I did. And that's what worked for me. And now that's what's working for all the people who work with me. Could you do an episode on maintenance? Yes, absolutely. I did. That episode is number 73. It's called 9 Ways to Maintain Your Weight Loss. I'm also currently working on an email series on maintenance and on helping people just to hold themselves in that mindset and to understand what it's like to transition from a losing phase to a maintenance phase. So that information's out there. I've also done a fair few questions about maintenance on these Ask Whatever episodes, and you can find them either on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Did you ever struggle to eat all of your calories? No. That really was never a problem for me. I'm not trying to be insensitive. I understand that it can be a problem for some people, particularly people who have switched to extremely low calorie, high volume foods. I understand how that can start to be a bit of a problem. For me, it wasn't because of the types of foods that I was eating. I didn't lose my weight eating salads and quinoa and, salads. I lost my weight eating pizza and burgers and wings and macaroni and whatever else I basically wanted to. I didn't change the foods that I was eating pretty much at all the first time I lost weight. That didn't happen until the second time I was losing my weight, when I started deliberately trying to incorporate the quote unquote healthier choices into my meals. The first time I lost my weight, I very stubbornly wanted to eat the food I wanted to. I didn't want to feel like I was suffering all the time. I didn't think I'd make it. The years of trying to lose weight where I was suffering all the time had shown me that I wasn't going to last if I felt like I was suffering. So I definitely didn't struggle to eat all of my calories in a day. There were times where I came in under, but I always stuck with what I wanted. That was always my primary concern. So there was never a big grab at the end of the day. Oh my goodness, I have 500 calories on the table. I better go get some Oreos. I'd already had the Oreos because I knew I had the calories. So I wasn't usually leaving a lot on the table. How do you cope with the feeling of failure when you've put the weight back on? I'm worrying and fretting about seeing people tomorrow, feeling ashamed and embarrassed. I don't even want to see my family. I don't have any clothes I feel comfortable in. Now, obviously, because this was a time-sensitive issue, I answered this one in real time. I always do. But I wanted to do an answer here on the podcast later because I think this affects a lot of us. It's really, really hard. In my case, I feel like I was lucky in a lot of ways because the people in my life who mattered to me all understood why I had gained my weight back. They knew what Sean and I were going through. They knew about the pregnancies that we'd lost. So I think to a lot of people who knew me and the people in my life, it was logical to them that after going through all of this and dealing with the pain of this, that I was going to gain weight. So I didn't feel, and I was so caught up in my own pain, I didn't have time, and I just didn't feel the external judgment from people. Now, this was all before I got sick, of course, but I had the car accident, which had really started to change my perspective on a lot of things. Losing the pregnancies changed my perspective on a lot of things. It had me questioning a lot. It had me questioning myself. And I'll be honest with you, I was dealing more with feelings of failure because of our fertility problems than I was dealing with feelings of failure at my weight. It was just, what's screaming the loudest. And my pain at not being able to have a child was screaming louder than anything else. And the truth is, I really didn't give a shit at that point. My internal narrative was, I've lost the weight before. I can do it again. I will do it again. I'm hurting so badly right now. And the only way I know to stop this pain is to eat. And that's what I did. Now, we're very fortunate. I have 3 absolutely beautiful sons. I also had the experience of getting so profoundly sick and being hospitalized for so long that further changed my perspective. So I know that gaining the weight back isn't something that I would allow myself to do again like I did when I gained it back the first time. Here's the thing. People are going to judge. People are going to judge you no matter what you do. And as hard as it is, the best thing you can do is try to block it out. And honestly, I think sometimes spending our time worrying about and thinking about how other people are perceiving us and whether or not they think that we're a failure takes up our mental time and doesn't give us the space to process our own feelings of failure. If you're too worried about how your cousins and your aunts and uncles and the people you used to go to Sunday school with, if you're too worried about what they're going to think about your weight gain, you don't have the time to think about what you think about your weight gain. And sometimes that's even harder to face. It's easier to tell yourself, oh my gosh, Aunt Shirley thinks that I'm a failure because I gained my weight back, than it is there to have to sit with the fact that you feel like a failure because you gained your weight back. And the truth is, you might just be projecting that on poor Aunt Shirley. Maybe Aunt Shirley doesn't give a shit that you've gained your weight back. Maybe she totally understands. But I understand feeling like a failure, and I understand feeling self-conscious and not wanting to go into those situations and feeling like none of your clothes fit. And I know what it's like when none of your clothes do fit because you've been in denial about how much weight you've put back on. And all of a sudden you have to go to an event and you realize, holy shit, this fit and now it doesn't. And I don't know what I'm going to do. And that can be kind of a form of self-sabotage too. Your family wants to see you for you, not for the body that you live in. And I'm sorry that you feel that way. It's understandable that you feel that way. And it is something that you can work through. You're not a failure because you gained your weight back. Life happened. You gained your weight back. It doesn't make you a failure. So long as you're still trying, you're not failing. And even if you're not trying right now, you wouldn't have written into me if a part of you doesn't want to try. So you are trying and you're not failing. You just have to keep going. I do not have a lot of weight to lose by comparison. Just 30 pounds would be good. 50 would be exceptional. So what should I be doing? 30 pounds is still pretty significant. You're looking at most of a year to get that off if you're crazy consistent and, hit the ground running. So don't belittle yourself or minimize or marginalize what you're going through or what you're facing. You're facing a lot too. Hard is hard. Pain is pain. I think you should be doing exactly what I tell someone with 100 pounds to lose or 200 pounds to lose. Small incremental changes. Figure out your TDEE. Work yourself down until you're 500 calories below it. First, you want to establish a baseline of where your calories are now. Then you want to figure out what the gap is between what you normally eat and what your body needs. And then we're going to work our way down until we're in that 500 a day calorie deficit. Change things in small ways, not in big ways. You do not have to completely overhaul your life. Focus on your little wins, build yourself up. Don't beat yourself down. Grab a copy of the guide that I was talking about earlier. It's for you too. And just get started. Those little changes are going to pave the way to your long-term success. And please don't marginalize what you're going through. 30 pounds is a lot too. 20 pounds can be a lot. Weight is relative. Recently, someone told me I wasn't eating enough. But according to you and many others, if I'm in a deficit, I should be losing. This is something that I've had to deal with. A lot of people, especially women on weight loss journeys, encounter this. There were moments when I was still more than 100 pounds overweight, and I would have people telling me, okay, that's enough. You should stop now. This is getting out of hand. You're not eating enough food. And I know that can be super popular coaching advice too, because when someone's trying to lose weight, something that we all want to hear is, you need to eat more. That will help you with your weight loss. That's never the answer. And you guys have heard me rant and rave about starvation mode. I promise that is not what is about to happen. We all know how I feel about that insanely offensive myth, but you're absolutely right. If you're in a deficit, you will be losing weight. If you believe that you're in a deficit and you're not losing weight, odds are very good that you're not actually in a deficit, and maybe you need to tighten up your tracking. You might need to take a look at your portions, figure out things like if you're actually using a tablespoon of mayonnaise on your sandwich, or if you're using a tablespoon and a half, which is adding 50 calories every swipe of the knife. Those types of things you might need to tighten up and take a look a little better. Tracking accurately is very, very difficult. Don't underestimate how hard it is to track accurately, because you're right. If you're in a deficit, you will lose weight unless there's something else going on. And for like 98% of the population, there isn't something else going on. It's just a gap between how accurately you're actually tracking and how accurately you think you're tracking. This one comes with a Gladys disclaimer. I do not work with anybody, Gladys. The count is at 0 for advertising dollars, brand deals, all that stuff. I don't do it. So this question came in. This is not sponsored in any way. Can you suggest some compression garments? I love compression garments, especially long sleeved ones because of my bat wings. I like a company named Hey Shape, and I've also used a bunch of randos on Amazon. I will just Google compression garments, compression sleeves, find ones that I like the look of and give them a try. I'm on a budget, so I don't tend to buy stuff that's very expensive. But compression garments are fabulous, especially for dealing with your loose skin. They're great for confidence. They really are. And honestly, for me, sometimes it's just being able to get clothes on. I have winter coats, for example, that if I wear a sweater under them, I can't wear them. They're the right size for my body, but for my arms, I need to size up. Like maybe I need a size small, but to get my arms in comfortably, I need a large. So compression garments really help me in situations like that. I also just generally feel more comfortable because I feel like I'm not, waving around in the breeze if I've got them on. My favorite brand is probably Hey Shape, but there are a lot of other really good ones out there. Experiment with it and try out the stuff that you can afford. And I'd love to hear your recommendations too. So let me know what you try. I hover around 335 and will work and lose 8 or so pounds and feel good about it. And then the next time I check, I'll be back up. So I say, screw it. And I give up for a while. This happens every week, it seems. I feel like you're describing where I was at before I really got started and figured this out. It is so discouraging. And that wheel of, I get so pumped up and I do everything I can and I lose some weight. And then I'm not as enthusiastic anymore, or a work dinner comes up, or it's somebody's birthday and I blow it. And then I throw caution to the wind. And then the next thing you know, I get on the scale and it's all the way back up. That is so many of our stories. And it is such a difficult cycle to break. I really hope that I'm helping in some small way. I hope today's episode will help you with that in some small way. We started off today's episode with a series of, I think, 5 or 6 questions that came in for the membership. Something like that might be an option for you as well. The Flamingo Forum is open. We will put the links in the notes here, but it's just a community of other women like you who are struggling and who are trying to lose their weight and learn what it takes, need daily accountability, need the motivation. Please feel free to reach out with any questions that you have. I would love for you to join us. I do live calls at least 3 to 5 hours a week where I'm one-on-one helping people with their direct issues. If you're looking for that type of support, I would strongly suggest checking that out and joining us. Try to keep your head up. Try not to beat yourself up. It's not going to help. I know there's a tendency you got to, break somebody down to build them back up. You don't. It's bullshit. You are enough exactly as you are, and you can definitely take this on exactly as you are. You do not need a complete personality transplant or someone screaming at you to lose weight. What you need is motivation, accountability, and encouragement. And I feel like those 3 things can really be lacking in today's diet culture. Okay, we still have a massive list of questions to get through. So I'm definitely going to be back next week and probably the week after with more of your questions. Please keep sending them in. I love your questions. I love your emails. I love doing these episodes. Let's just get all the questions answered for you guys. There's nothing off limits. Don't be shy. Just send it in. In the meantime, I hope you have an amazing week. Keep trying, keep tracking. Don't be intimidated and don't give up. You've totally got this. Thank you for listening to Disrupting Obesity with Charlotte Skanes. If you know it's time to take back control, lose the weight, and keep it off, reach out to me privately with a direct message on Instagram that says ready, so you can start disrupting obesity.